Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Really excited to get this series underway. Yes, we are doing a 150 dupe challenge. Why 150 dupes? Well, I've seen a lot of people do 100 dupes. I've seen people hit the high 140s in the case of Francis John. So I figured, hey, why not try to go a little bit further? Now, will my computer die? Yes, it will. Are there going to be duplicants die? Probably. Are we going to have fun watching it? Absolutely. Now, this particular episode is sort of the introduction to the entire series, hence the reason it'll be titled Episode 0. And that way we can get all of the business of setting up the map, telling you guys what the series is going to look like, all out of the way. And so at the beginning of Episode 1, we jump right into it. You can see the current build in the bottom left. It is the most recent as of March 21st, 2022. We're going to go ahead and click New Game. Of course, we're doing Survival. Now, I thought about this for a little while, and because we're going to be running so many dupes, we're going to go with the classic asteroid style, but we are still using the DLC. Additionally, because we're going to be so concerned about the one huge limiting factor on dupe count, being water, we're going to go ahead and start with the basic asteroid. Now, we could go to something like the Oceania asteroid, but that doesn't seem quite fair, does it? And quite frankly, most of these other asteroids are probably a little bit too difficult to be running, for instance, 150 dupes on. Not to say that it can't be done, but I'd rather try to give us the best chances as possible. There go, we are starting on the Terra asteroid. We're just going to go ahead and pop the reroll world seed just a couple of times, and then hit start game. Now, there are a lot of differences about the playstyle we're going to take with this colony that we do in some other colonies. Because while we have done maximum difficulty on a couple of different asteroid types, we've never done 150 duplicates. So I'm going to wager to say this is probably our most difficult colony attempt yet. Some of the other considerations we have to make is the fact that the frames per second are going to be tanking very quickly. And for that reason, we're running a limited amount of mods. Bigger camera zoom out, just so that I can show you what you need to see. We also have pause on ready to print. This will allow it to when the printing pod is ready, the game will pause and let us go in there. And that way I don't miss grabbing a dupe. And then finally, I added Geyser calculated average output tooltip, just so that we can spend a little less time doing the math, and so you can easily see it when I'm highlighting that geyser, especially considering we're going to be on the hunt for some water geysers. Now, as I was saying before, there's going to be a lot of special considerations that we have to make with this colony, and it starts with our starting dupes, because we have to get the colony going very, very quickly, because those dupes are going to be coming out of the printing pod very quickly as well. We need the colony to be ready to support additional dupes by the time they're printed. So normally I start with a digger, a researcher, and then I'll flip up the third dupe every once in a while. Sometimes I'll give us a rancher, sometimes I'll give us a farmer. In this case, we are not going to mess around. We're starting with 2 diggers and a researcher. Now, the reason why we're doing that is because the 2 diggers will allow us to core out as much of the planetoid as quickly as possible, and we need to get that good start on research immediately. Now I'm going to try to click through this a bunch of times to try to set us up for success, and we're going to be very careful about these negative traits. Now, once you're sitting around 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 150 dupes, the interests aren't going to really matter. We're going to have so many dupes with so many things to do, we're not going to have to pay as much of attention to say, okay, how many builders do we have? How many researchers do we have? Because we're going to have plenty of all of them. But we are going to pay attention to the negative traits right here. For instance, if you had 150 dupes and they're all flatulent, bad things are going to happen. Additionally, we also need to be careful of dupes like this one, the mouth breather. Oxygen is going to be at a premium, hence the reason we're going to need so much water. So we're going to try not to stab ourselves in the foot anymore by grabbing a mouth breathing dupe. I paused for a second on Lindsay here. Because of the +9 excavation and the mole hands, that'd be a great +12 to excavation just out of the gate. Unfortunately, we really don't want our digger to start with a decreased germ resistance, because they're going to be going head first into a bunch of slime biomes, and the last thing we need to do is have them being sick all the time. Alright, this is what we're going to settle with. we ended up with a Rowan, a Turner, and an Ellie. Rowan here is the +7 to excavation and is buff, so it's a little bit of bonus on the strength side. And Squeamish, we don't care if Rowan can't do doctoring, that's a-okay. And then Turner has a +8 to excavation, gets an early bird bonus, and only has a small bladder, not a big deal. Now our researcher I kept re-rolling without much success. I ended up with this Ellie here because of the +10 to science and the diver's lung. Yeah, they're not very good at digging, but it doesn't really matter. The decreased air consumption rate is a very great trait for us. Now, because we're going to be having 150 dupes, this is a great way to show some appreciation to the community. So we're actually going to start by naming our dupes by seniority and memberships. So I am proud to introduce you to our first 3 dupes, Miko Nala, John Mann, and Yango Hamez. Now, this is not some sort of drive to kick up memberships. In fact, we're going to appreciate all of our community. At the start of this series, I have 20 members between Patreon and YouTube memberships. After that, we're going to be naming the duplicants after active members of the community. And what I mean by that is anybody who's been sort of active in the community, commenting on videos, has been with us for a while, they will get a duplicate named after them. And then finally, after we get through all those folks, it'll be going straight to the comments to those people who say, hey, I'd like to be in the colony. Just comment on all these videos in the series, listing a name, and chances are, a duplicate will be named after you as well. We've named the colony duplicative, and we'll go ahead and click on Bark. And the last thing I want to be able to do is give you guys the colony seed. So I'm going to do an instant pause here at the beginning, and we're going to throw up the colony coordinates, and I will make sure that I copy these to the video description below. And then we're going to finish off this series by doing a quick zoom out so you can get a lay of the land, because I want to hear all your ideas. There's a couple of early considerations that we have to make immediately. For instance, we're going to need a lot of oxygen and we're going to need a lot of food. Specifically, on the food front, we can't use any food that requires water. That would be kicking ourselves in the foot. And on top of that, we simply can't just run any old food source. For instance, hatches. Considering that each ranch can sustain 5 duplicants, it would take 30 ranches to feed a colony of 150. That's just out of the question. Between all of the minerals that you'd have to feed them and then all the ranchers to keep them tame. So chances are it's going to take multiple different food sources. A lot of you might be thinking, well, let's just do Pacu. Pacu is a good consideration, except when you figure how many Pacu we'd actually have to run and the damage it would do to our frames per second. So we have to take all these things into consideration when we're deciding food sources, how we're going to get our oxygen, etc., etc. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this beginning, episode 0, first look at our 150 duplicant run. I can't wait to hear your enthusiasm and your ideas in the comments below. I will be reading all of them because this is going to be a max community effort. Now, my plan is to produce about 1 of these a week, but as many of you know in the community, my schedule is kind of a mess right now, so the goal is 1 video a week, but you'll have to forgive me if I'm not able to produce at that rate. Especially considering in the mid and late games in this colony, it's going to take a lot of work. I've had a great time recording this episode. I'm very excited for this series. I hope you are too. And I'll talk to you soon.